Georgia O'Keeffe is known for her contribution to American 20th century art, creating a language of her own to interpret nature, her constant source of inspiration. We examined the artist's technique in depth by studying the 5 pictures in the Thyssen-Bornemisza collections. Georgia O'Keeffe developed a very refined technique and was concerned about the future conservation of her works from their creation. O'Keeffe liked to decide on the format, type of canvas, and the preparation of her pictures. She was attracted by different textures and how they influenced the final appearance. She used American-style stretchers that helped preserve her paintings in good condition. The artist applied commercial proprietary layers with filler or simply paint as a ground. These preparations were the basis of her paintings, as their absorption capacity, elasticity and colour contributed to the end result. Between the 1920s and 1950s, her busiest years, she used ready-primed canvases to speed up production and meet the huge demand for paintings for solo exhibitions. In the 1960s, O'Keeffe went back to choosing the formats of her canvases, priming them herself, and working at a pace that allowed her to control each stage of the process. The artist planned her work painstakingly. She acquired the habit of starting with preliminary drawings during her formative period. She made sketches from life and later used photographs, subsequently developing the works in her studio. She used a pencil or charcoal to draw very fine lines on the canvas before applying the paint. These strokes can be seen using photomicrography and infrared reflectography and usually match the lines of the final compositions. In some preparatory drawings from the 1920s, she annotated the specific colour or colour shades to be used for each element. Georgia O'Keeffe was passionate about colour and used it as an expressive device. She worked with different hues. She used a very rich palette of colours and always combined 2 or 3 to achieve a particular tone. She handled almost imperceptible hues with expertise. In White Iris No. 7, she used different types of white, lead, zinc and titanium, depending on the desired finish, though they are only identifiable under ultraviolet light. Hundreds of colour cards painted by her, a sort of catalogue of colours, were found in her studio. They were important aids as they provided her with samples for achieving the desired hue and value. She placed them beneath a glass sheet palette so she could see them while mixing colours. She mixed the oil paints in the palette to achieve a homogeneous tone and applied in a very thin layer, leaving the canvas weave visible. She always allowed the previous application to dry to prevent the tones from blending, a technique known as wet into dry. Another common resource was to leave contours unpainted so that the preparatory layers were visible in places, called holidays. This shows that she worked with reserves. To achieve such precision, she usually used flat brushes. She employed a huge variety of tones, juxtaposing them. Photographs taken under raking light and photomacrographs show the raised lines where the different areas of colour meet. The X-ray images show that the artist kept to her initial design, leaving spaces for the main forms and only layering on details. After years of taking part in exhibitions, she was conscious of the risks handling paintings entailed. She was worried that fingerprints and pollution were starting to affect her works, which she had decided not to varnish. While an exhibition of her work was being mounted at the MoMA in 1946, she met conservator Caroline Keck. O'Keeffe began adapting her working method to the conservation advice of the Kecks, chiefly Caroline. Their correspondence provides information about many of the artist's procedures and concerns. Will you reline my From the Plains too, and if you will, where? It has been sold and seems to have stretcher marks that show as it is lighted from the sides. The work was dealt with in December of that same year. O'Keeffe did not varnish her works because she felt that varnish alters colour saturation and gloss. She began using it in 1946 at Caroline Keck's recommendation to protect them from dirt and handling. The laboratory analysis detected acrylic varnish on the surface of all 5 works, in keeping with the information in some of the labels. O'Keeffe was involved in designing frames as part of the process, aware of their importance for the conservation of her works. She liked simple mouldings. Between the 1920s and 1950s, she mostly used clamshell frames. From the 1950s onwards, she mainly chose frames with an L-shaped metal profile. O'Keeffe protected her paintings with backing boards. She made them herself from industrial cardboard and cut out half-moon-shaped finger grooves. They display signatures, titles, and symbols that identify the artist, such as the initials OK inside a star, and labels indicating technique, restoration work, or participation in shows. All this provides essential information about the works and their exhibition history. The reverses are therefore of great documentary value. Georgia O'Keeffe was well aware of the importance of using a refined technique to preserve her works in good condition. She was concerned about the entire painting process, from choice of materials to use of frames, protective glazing and backing boards. She was flexible and open-minded enough to realize she needed to change certain procedures, and even decided her works should undergo treatment. This is probably the first time this has occurred in modern history.